Hey folks, Country Prepper here. I am one of those people that has a really skeptical mind. So what I mean by that is I question everything, basically. And so the other day I was watching a bunch of videos and I noticed a lot of prepper channels will recite the rule of threes, which is 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. And I have to question the logic behind these ideas because I've experienced some of these things and they don't hold true. So starting from the beginning, 3 minutes without oxygen. After just a few seconds without oxygen, you're going to begin to panic most times, especially if it's a surprise. When I was a kid, I loved going to the swimming pool, and I was watching something as a kid and saw somebody using a snorkel and goggles to swim and see underwater. So I thought that was really cool. So I got a set of goggles and a snorkel and went to the swimming pool, and some jerk teenager covered my snorkel so I couldn't get any air, and I just immediately panicked. So that's how I know that that happens. Now, another thing is 6 minutes without oxygen and your brain begins to die. You will start getting brain damage from it. So I find that rule misleading because if you start to panic and you start to hyperventilate or try to get oxygen and you can't get oxygen, you're going to go down a lot faster than 3 minutes. You're going to pass out, and if you continue to not get oxygen, you die. So then you have 3 hours without shelter, and a lot of people will recite this when building a bug-out bag or a survival kit. And the reason why I find this a little misleading is because your clothing is shelter. So you don't have to, you're not going to die if you don't have a tarp. You're not going to die if you don't have a tent or some type of lean-to, or if you can't find shelter of any kind. In other words, it's not going to kill you. You can survive more than 3 hours without some type of structure shelter, as long as you're properly clothed. So then there's 3 days without water, and this one is really, really off in my opinion, because even after several hours, they say when your mouth starts to feel dry, technically you are starting to become dehydrated. So that's one of the reasons why I find that misleading. Also, different temperatures, different climates, different weather situations are going to change that. I know it's supposed to be like a general rule, but it can be really misleading if you don't understand these things. Another thing they don't take into consideration is a lot of our food, natural foods, plants and stuff like that, has water in it. And depending on how hot you get, maybe you think that if you're in a cold climate that you're not sweating as much, you're not going to need that water as much, but you still evaporate the fluids out of your body if you're hot in any way, especially if you're not wearing a hat, if you're not properly sheltered, things like that. Your body's going to evaporate those fluids faster. So if you go, even just a couple of days without water, you're going to start having cramps, and you're going to start having issues with fatigue, and there's all kinds of different things that affect you from not drinking or becoming dehydrated, in other words. So I find that really misleading. There are ways that you can survive longer without it, and there are reasons that that's not anywhere near enough water for being able to survive. And now finally we have the last one, 3 weeks without food, and this one is terribly misleading. Even just after a couple of days without food, you're going to start feeling the effects of extreme fatigue. You're going to have problems with mental clarity. You're going to be getting confused. You're going to be just completely drained of energy. Well before 3 weeks, your body is going to start shutting down and basically cannibalizing itself to get the stuff it needs, the proteins, the amino acids it needs to try to make some energy. Now, I've gone on a 3-day fast before. You wouldn't know by looking at me, but I have several times actually, just to kind of reboot your digestive system. That's one of the reasons people do that, but just kind of doing a detox type of thing. But anyhow, you know, after a couple of days, you just don't even feel like carrying yourself or just even getting up. Getting out of bed is a hell of a struggle. So, and when back in 2008, when I had cancer, I went well over 3 days. I think I went 5 days at one time without holding any food down anyway. And, you know, by the time I managed to be able to eat something and keep it in me, I was so exhausted that, you know, I could barely get myself to the bathroom. And that was like maybe 12, 15 feet away from my bed. So, at that time anyway. And so it's terribly misleading to say you can go 3 weeks without food, because you might be able to survive it. I mean, Gandhi went 21 days without food just basically to prove a point that he could do it. But your body shuts down. You're not going to be thinking clearly. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get hurt. It just really poses a really, really big risk on the chances of your survival to go any length of time without any calories. So at the beginning of the year, I did a channel update and said that I wanted to touch on some topics of mental preparedness, and this is one of them. This is critical thinking. Groupthink, especially prepper groupthink, can get you killed. And so I want to cover some more topics along these lines just to get people to think more. You know, one of the biggest problems with our society, as I see it, is people stop thinking for themselves and they just take things at face value. They do what they're told and they go where they're told. They go through life without really ever challenging their mind or the system that we live in. That's why I don't get along very well in the corporate world, guys. It's one of those things where they came up with rules, and I'm sure they had some sort of reason behind it. Maybe their reason was just to be an ass, but and try to control people. I mean, there was one time I had a job where I got written up for leaving a door that I wasn't supposed to walk through some grass to a parking lot where my truck was. Seriously. So I have always had a problem with authority. I've always questioned everything. I never take anything at face value, and I sure as hell don't trust anything the government tells me. So anyway, before I get into some sort of rant, that's all I got for you guys today. Just think about things and don't just take everything at face value. Think for yourselves. It's not illegal yet. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.